Exploring the unknown, from conspiracies to mysteries, you are entering the conspiracy sector.
Welcome everyone to this very special program. I am your host, Aubrey Batchelor. Sailing this divine, amazing ship of knowledge with me is Chris Jacobs, and you are entering the conspiracy sector. Well, we hope you've been doing good since the last episode. Chris and I have been sapping air and surviving like normal, as have you if you're watching this. And we got another doozy for you today. We got a very interesting topic that has literally taken not only the internet, but the world by storm. You know, there was a certain time period here, forget the exact time that it was happening, but I know that it was dominating the news headlines there whenever it
Was
was
about
hit.
2008 and 9. It was, but
Yeah, nine. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, somewhere around there. Yeah.
mhm.
And we're going to be talking about Slender Man today. And it's a very interesting subject, from the origins of it, all the things that get intermixed in between, all the theories of what happens after it was created. How did it actually come about, and then what are its powers? What can it do? What does it mean? Well,
Mhm.
it just joins the pot of all the mysteries that infiltrate this world for the most part. It adds it to the list, but it's very strange. I know that there's been people that have had experiences with Slender Man and have reported feeling overwhelmingly good, which is surprising because the denotation to Slender Man is that it's a bad, evil creature, but here's this benevolent, experience that you had with a so-called malevolent being. And I've read reports of both outcomes, both good and bad, with Slender Man, interestingly enough. So
Mhm.
hopefully we'll
Oh, yeah.
learn a little bit more today about Slender Man.
I find this interesting. I have a Wikipedia thing that I'll screenshot this so people can see this. It's I don't know, come on. There we go. Yeah, it said it was the Slender Man, also spelled Slender Man as one word, is a fictional, they say, fictional supernatural character that originated as a creepypasta internet meme, which that is true. That was around at that time, and there was not fictional because people have physically been seeing this, but Slender Man was a popular internet legend created in June 2009. But when two 12-year-olds tried stabbing their friend to death, this mythical creature took on a life of its own. This is a this is basically, they say, it's a frightening folk tale. This one here, so this is a movie based on a true story. Like the creepypasta meme again, they say it's not at all real because they did a movie in 2018, from what I understand. So
Huh.
this is also interesting. Not this one.
Wait, scroll up real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Interestingly enough, it's from OprahDaily.com.
Oprah Daily. Yeah,
Uh,
timelines literally. Yeah, that's funny. This one here.
the number one recommended movie by Oprah herself, Slender Man.
Oh yeah, I just heard Isaac go, irony. That's what you call irony. So, but this one, the Slender Man's weakness, and it says halogen lamps. That's the one in the game. The Slender Man in the 8 pages, the famous game that came out. And this is mainly what it is talking about. This one is the fascinating statement here. Who found Slender Man? The writings of H.P. Lovecraft influenced the creation of Slender Man. The Slender Man was created on June 10th, 2009, on a thread in the Something Awful internet forum. The thread was a Photoshop contest in which users were challenged to create paranormal images. This is what spoke loudly to me in this case. And the reason why is when people are imagining things or coming up with stuff, things can communicate through the third eye. That's the imagination center of the brain. So what were they actually seeing? Were they coming up with something in their head that are based on imagination out of their own energies, or were they actually seeing something in their head and thinking it was their own idea? When you come up with something that you're channeling from the ether or the source energy, it tends to, or the akashic record, as some call it, it tends to come to you as like an idea, and sometimes it can be in a communication if you're not recognize it as some kind of telepathic contact. So with this though, the Slender Man in the 8 pages, yeah, that creeped even me out. I was playing that thing late at night. It's actually a good game if people want to check it out. Slender Man in the 8 pages originally, but the premise, I found out it was reversed from what people thought. It was a thought form that was mass created by the population. I found out it was the reverse of that, and it was a dimensional being that was communicating. Hence, why you both get both good and bad. I'm thinking the bad results are. This is an example that came straight out of Star Trek, and I happen to agree with the assessment of the writers on this one because this was similar. There was a set of beings that the Enterprise comes in contact with in a cloud of gas, and they're using their Bussard collectors to collect some of the gas from this for fuel for the ship, for the dilithium crystals. All of a sudden, some of the crew starts to go nuts. They start to just go crazy. And this is also like how the Slender Man is. Some people have had this happen. What happened was they found out they were killing the beings inside this cloud by vacuuming them into the collector, for the energy consumption. And the same goes with Stargate. Atlantis, they ran into a set of beings they were using the power of the Stargate. It was made of energy, and they were killing them by mistake. But in this instance, some of the crew members were having weird dreams and visions, and kind of going off in a daze somewhere. Whereas they were seeing this destructive imagery. Some were seeing bad narratives from their own family life, like Uhura saw her family die in like this dream sequence and all this other stuff. And then saw fighting with herself or with another being or a dead crew member that looked skeletal. What had happened was these beings were trying to communicate, saying, you're causing death and destruction. We will end up having to hurt you as self-defense if you don't stop, is what they were trying to say. And they found out the telepathic contact was damaging that part of the human brain. That's why some of them were going crazy. It was an incompatibility. Some elementals have an incompatibility with humans and drive their blood pressure up. And that I found that out, where there's a physiological incompatibility there. But with this, the reason I bring this up is because some people have associated, I've talked to some people where they've associated some of the Slender Man visions with some of these weird, not just the narratives of the AI that I've told people about, where it's these weird narratives get plopped in somebody's head. It's something trying to relate to somebody saying, hey, we're trying to relate to you in some fashion. And that's where some of the good contacts come in. The bad ones can be misinterpreted as saying, hey, you might be damaging the environment somewhere. You might be damaging the ether somewhere. Like, say there's a nuclear power plant or something that's reaching into the dimensional layers. And some aliens and elementals alike have disabled these things in the past. That's been known to happen. With this, it's some of those bad contacts could very well be like demonic contacts that are trying to mimic Slender Man, or it could be some misinterpreted communication. But some people have projected it out as something awful, so therefore they're getting that back as like a reference, or it's projecting back at them. But I believe in the good instances they're coming across a real cryptid or a real being. I was told in channelings that it was an actual real cryptid. Now, where another show that made it popular, they switched the name from Slender Man to The Silence. This was Doctor Who. And I can't remember which season it was. If people want to go look at the Lake Silencio season with the Doctor and that whole Destiny Paradox plot they had going in one of the Matt Smith seasons. Whereas The Silence looks like a Slender Man gray alien thing in a suit. And Stephen Moffat said he took his inspiration from Slender Man when he created The Silence. And The Silence is where the being looks at you, they're there. You look away from them and you forget it's there. That was The Silence. In that they were mixing Slender Man with like gray alien type of alien abduction type of scenarios. Very interesting how they did it. He fused them together. Just like when he created the Weeping Angels, it was basically a statement against the church, where you look at them, they freeze in place. Their statues. You look away, they're the ones doing the mischief in the background. Wolf in sheep's clothing. So he's good at the symbolism that way. But with Slender Man, when I started tapping into this, I wanted to see what it was. And a lot of the stories are coming from my neck of the woods. I'm in Virginia Beach. So most of it's West Virginia and surrounding. Also, a little bit up into the other colonies, but mostly around in Appalachia. I've been hearing a lot of stuff. And it's been mostly, it's been 50-50, negative, positive. Some people have talked to me about that going, you know anything about this? And I found out it's a dimensional being that was trying to make contact. That then when they created Slender Man in the 8 pages, they figured, oh, voice in the woods was, stalking people through the woods. They've also misinterpreted some Sasquatch stuff in there too, forest people stuff in there as well, and also Dogman tales as well. Kind of got thrown in there.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna say that. No.
yeah, all that got thrown into the mix. But the original premise was something was trying to make contact with somebody. Somebody misinterpreted it. I found out up in Alaska, there is a mer species in Lake Iliandra that's up in Alaska, and they call it Illy the lake monster, but there's a mer species that live up there. It looks like a mix between a tigerfish and an oarfish. If people have seen the oarfish, it's this long,
Yeah.
and a tigerfish that has the teeth in the front. It's a mer species that's bioluminescent, and some of them have been known to look that way. I came to find out there was a misinterpretation between the Inuit tribes and this species because it was trying to make contact, and all they saw was this creepy-looking monster when it was a cryptid. And the Vikings misinterpreted forest people in the same way. They called them like forest demons because of the red eyes and the eye shine. So Eric the Red and Leif Erikson misinterpreted the giant hairy men as being demonic, or something of that nature. So the same thing goes with Slenderman. It's people think it's a fictional thing because I think they'd rather it be that because they think that they see the origins as being Slenderman in the 8 pages and the meme that was online, the contest, the Photoshop contest, but they don't put into account that that's the effect and not the cause. That's what came after that channeling entered our ether and started to spread like a butterfly effect or wildfire everywhere. That's how it works. When something enters our knowledge base or our archaic information, it tends to drop and pop up all over the place. That's why you have so many lawsuits out there that, like somebody said, you stole my patent, you stole my idea, because somebody brought it in as a form of from somewhere else, brought it in as higher knowledge and brought it here. And following the as above, so below micro magic, they brought it back, downloaded it here, and others are partaking in it thinking they came up with it. It was because it was brought here to the earthly plane. The same goes with the Slenderman thing, and but so people got it flipped. I came to find out it's an actual thing that I saw. I was shown what it looked like. It kind of has a form. It's like when it's here, it has a Slendermanish look, like a stick figure-ish. And some land curses can look this way too. So I can see where some of like culminations of poltergeist energies on land, but there's pooled negativity, can look kind of lanky and ghoulish looking. But with this though, the reason it doesn't take a complete form, but you feel like it's following or stalking you, is because when something crosses a dimensional threshold, it's kind of a being coming from one set of physics to another set of physics. And like some ships, even dimensional spaceships, when they cross the threshold, have to obey our laws of physics. And when that happens, it may take a form that our physics can conform it to. That's why they say some beings say our physics are limited, like other dimensional beings. The prime examples, if anybody's ever seen the show Farscape from years ago, the Jim Henson show Farscape, there was this ancient being that follows the character of Crichton around periodically. And he's when he comes into to our dimension, he looks like a weird like Muppet or something, like that. And then he can shapeshift to make himself look like the character of Crichton's father. He can change form. He's a face changer after that. He said the other form isn't necessarily completely me either. It's just how your physics are conforming my energy matrices. And I'm really from another dimension. And I look and feel totally different, and Crichton ends up encountering one of them in their dimension, and they do look different. They tried to make them look kind of like grayish humans with the black eyes, like old men with the black eyes, like kind of like a gray human mix or Orion mix. They were kind of going that route, but like a Fomorian wizard mix. But that's what Slenderman is, going from one dimensional layer to ours. And the form it takes here is this weird, long, tall cryptid that can only stay in our dimension for a limited time and tries to communicate. And how people interpret it is how it kind of reflects back at them. And they may be sensitive also to our thought forms as well. And so they've been accused of being a thought form as a result. But I don't. It's like with us. There's good things out there and there's bad things out there. It's been personified as dark, like Mothman. it's been personified as almost like an angel of death type of
Yeah.
symbol. Something totally different. It was found out it was another like a dimensional cryptid as well. So Mothman falls under that category. They were alien, but they were also dimensional. So
Have you visited the Mothman site out that way?
yeah, I've been there. Me and Joanna have been to the museum and everything there. It's interesting. Yeah, it's an
I
interesting.
had a friend that just went out and seen it, and I had to laugh. He took a picture of the statue, and he says, "Man, I didn't know Mothman worked out. His big legs and his ass on the statue."
So we have a picture of us by the same statue. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And if people play the game Fallout 76, you can actually go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to the exact museum and the statue too. So
that's kind of
it's in the
funky.
game. Yeah, it's in the game, but it's interesting that Slender Man is seen in the same kind of areas as Mothman, and also there are bat-like creatures that have been seen as well. So people have misinterpreted all of these things as being kind of like, oh, this must be Mothman, this must be a bat creature, this must be Slender Man, and they're not. They're differentiating to a point, but some people have lumped it in as all Mothman, and so it's all kind of dimensional. There's bat-like creatures, cryptids that look like bat-like, human-like ones. That was seen in Illinois. One was seen on the Sears Tower in Illinois at one point. And, somebody, of course, said, oh, it's Batman. Somebody made a joke about that. But some people misinterpreted all three of these categories as being some of the same stuff. Some are Slender Man, some are Mothman, some are these bat beings. Some are owl-like ones, two-dimensional owl-like ones. So that's also been thrown into the mix. So, and then of course you got Dogman and Forest People that get thrown into it as well. So you got people aren't dicing it up to the category it belongs in, whether it's ultra terrestrial / dimensional, physical. They're not. They're kind of lumping it all because it kind of at certain angles would kind of all look the same, except for Slender Man. That's the odd man out there, but yeah, it's all under that category from what I came to find out. And the bat ones are actually working on behalf of somebody else. They're like the eyes and ears that watch people either dimensionally or for some agency, or even I found out corporations and some of these ETs help from time to time. But with this, but cryptid wise, people have lumped these like 5 or 6 cryptids in the same category. Just like everybody says gnome, when some could be leprechaun, some could be little like puckwudgies, things of that nature. People lump. But Slender Man specifically, though, is more of a dimensional being, from what I'm understood.
Now, I'm not sure the exact origins. I've kind of been, reading, looking into it, and hearing about it over the course of the last decade and whatnot. I'm kind of leaning that way a little bit. But, of course, there's the theory of tulpas, the theory of demon, the theory of even now there's an interesting theory going around that artificial intelligence will advance Slender Man to a new whatever it transitions into, from
like holographic type tulpa type figure. Yeah, like an AI induced one. That's
from
also
a larvae to a caterpillar to a butterfly. What's its neck? What will it morph into with the assistance of
exactly AI? That's also lumped into the category as well. That's another category.
They all are. It's weird. They're all interconnected. It's like a cobweb. And each little section inside of that cobweb is AI, Slender Man, Bigfoot, aliens, everything just kind of,
and Hat Man too. That's all thrown in there as well. So
Earth creatures, both animal and human.
People have like clumped a lot of that into one thing. They don't always know what they're looking at. Even Dogman and Forest People, some of them look very similar to one another at certain angles. Bear Squatch, Goat Squatch, Satyr, they're all, people lump it together, but it's it'd be worth it to go through the whole glossary of cryptids at some point, but yeah, or in dimensional beings. But I picked Slender Man because it's most talked about, but people tend to shift it more towards the Slender Man and the 8 pages origin point versus the dimensional origin point.
I've heard Dogman and Slender Man, together in the same sentence several times. Have you had any reports of Dogman sightings out there?
There's been Forest People and Dogman sightings all up the East Coast. Yeah, up towards the further north you go, though up towards like Massachusetts and Maine and Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware. When you get up in there, the dogmen have different look reports up there. Further down, you get more of the werewolf looking ones, the classic ones, and you get like some of the pushed in facelifts like Chewbacca down here in Florida. That's where the word Wookiee came from, where Lucas got that one. It was Wauki, or meaning swamp creature. So
Wookiee.
the Seminole came up with that. But further north, you get ones that look more like hyenas in the face. They're like a little more localized tribe. Like you have people in different regions that look differently. With Sasquatch and forest people, forest people, Sasquatch, you get the same thing, and dogmen, you get the same thing. So, like forest people on the West Coast, you get ones that have kind of like the Samoan look, like with the no neck, or like the Hawaiian like look, because that's the Lemurian lineage, or Samoan Mu Lemuria groups over there. Like Vancouver Island was part of that. So was Arizona and California. So on this side, you get more some of the Atlantis lineage stuff and stuff from further north up into like the forest that encompasses around the top of the world. Essentially, you get some stuff from there. That's where some of them crossed over, Atlanta, like in the Atlantean period and all this, and that's why you have werewolf stories in that part of the United States too. So it's like you get some vampire stuff too, but that's mainly more encompassed around southern United States, like New Orleans, South Louisiana, you know. But with Dogman, yeah, you get that changing further north you go. Also the reports of like little things like puckwudgies and those type of things you get mainly on the East Coast. They go everywhere, but you get mainly the mischievous reports of them here. They like to break things, cause mischief, kill animals, things of that nature. And then you have the chupacabra stuff the further south you go, down into Mexico and everything. And some of these are all interrelated into some degree, but the names changed as well. So but yeah, those are more lizard gremlin looking things. I think some of them are a lot related, but Slender Man tends to take it it stands out amongst the rest of them because it's more in the ultra terrestrial dimensional being category, from going the one set of physics to the other. And that's, I mean, I started with a theory in that way. I'm thinking, could it be this, or could it be a tulpa or a projection of what people were creating, you know, a mental co-creative projection? And I found it's both. People wanted it to be one way, or saw it as one way, and then their fears and their assumptions of what it is then turned it into something else entirely. So it actually falls under both categories. So that's what I was kind of able to deduce. You know, I've not ever seen a Slender Man before. Now I'm probably going to end up, now that I've
that's what I was thinking after doing all this and talking. Great.
Probably end up seeing one now. Because,
more to keep me up at night.
Yeah, it's like I already see forest people, dogmen, ghosts, and demons. Might as well add the Slender Man to the mix. You know, yeah. And one of the creepier cryptids that are out there, I would have to say, is a Wendigo. I've encountered one of them before, and they possess people, and they look like this weird skeletal, like jinn-like form that. Yeah, you want to talk about bulk? They do have some bulk on them. They kind of, first I thought they were reptilian in nature, but they're not. They have this dimensional like quality to them as well, where they can suck the life out of an area. They are an actual cryptid. Some people thought they were a tulpa thought form as well, but they're not. They're another dimensional thing that's fully evil. It's been created by somebody. I don't know the complete story behind who created it, but it came in. It can drain a person. That's why the cannibalism thing took hold with that, because that's one of the creepier bad guys that are out there as a Wendigo. I do not wish that one on anyone. They are very creepy. So Slender Man, I have my intuition tells me, yeah, it's 50-50 where there's good and bad in there. But Wendigo, no, I won't mess with that one. That's one of the few that I won't touch. And some vampiric entities like that, like there's this plant-like one I hate dealing with too, where its origins were from medieval Ireland and medieval Europe, where people would put tar water out and drink tar water to repel this weird cryptid. They thought it would get inside of them and put spores in them, and it looks like a Venus flytrap. Or if people see the movie Blade, where it's that vampire that the jaw opens up and it opens up from like this. it's mix of Venus flytrap with like also the movie Mimic, with Mira Sorvino, where it was like that bug that would mimic things and mimic humans and everything. It's kind of like that. I've encountered one of these things before, or a couple of these things, and they're one of the creepiest vampiric cryptids to actually be on Earth, because they're very difficult to get rid of, and they're a pain in the ass, to tell you the truth. But Wendigo, that, and a couple of others really creep me out. But Slenderman, I personally have not encountered it. I've just been told in my channelings about it. I haven't really seen it, that one for myself. I've physically seen a lot of these other types, but I haven't. I've never seen a Slenderman. So
and
yeah.
I don't know if I really care to.
Yeah, no, really. That's probably one of the others I'll probably regret. It probably falls under the "be careful what you wish for" category. But
Yeah.
uh,
Here, let me all share into it. You've kind of hit on a few things. We both hit on a few things already.
yeah.
This is the Legend of Slender Man, all right? And it comes
Okay.
from allthatisinteresting.com, and it's an article by John Kurowski. He's got to be Polish, I would imagine.
No, I hadn't guessed.
Yeah. Slenderman was a popular internet legend created in June 2009. When two 12-year-olds tried stabbing their friend to death, a mythical creature took on a life of its own. And see, that's where it topped the headline charts, was that case. At first, Slenderman was just an internet meme, but then it became a frightening folktale whispered among American youths. And before long, the Slenderman legend inspired a few of these young people to kill. But how did a fictional character created on the internet cause so much violence, and why did he become so popular in the first place? Let's take a look inside the real Slenderman story and see where it all began. The origins of Slenderman. On June 10th, 2009, Slenderman was born out of a Photoshop contest on the internet forum. The challenge, which was posted on the comedy website Something Awful, encouraged people to take regular photographs and make them look scary by adding realistic ghosts, ghouls, or monsters. And Eric Knudsen is the man that is ticketed with the creation, the origins of Slenderman, who went by the username Victor Surge, responded to the call by creating Slenderman, a ghostly figure with a featureless face. This character was creepy enough to make the photos go viral. It was pretty spontaneous, Knudsen told in an interview in 2011. I saw some of my pictures in the thread, and I just decided to make something that I myself would find creepy. And see that, like you said, he found inspiration from many different things. Inspired by the surreal meanings of H.P. Lovecraft, Stephen King, William S. Burroughs, and a host of folklore creatures, Knudsen took some old black and white pictures of children playing and inserted a tall, thin, grainy figure in the background. In one image, he added tentacles to the figure's back. So yeah, it kind of makes you think of Cthulhu. You remember H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu? One of his photos also featured a cryptic caption that added to its creepy allure. It read, "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them." But its persistent silence and outreached arms horrified and confronted us at the same time. 1983 photographer unknown, presumed dead. Knudsen never could have imagined how many people would be inspired by the character, or that some would take their enthusiasm too far. The making of the Slenderman legend. While Knudsen gave Slenderman his name and physique, the Slenderman legend was the communal, homegrown creation of a slew of internet users. If you want to study the life cycle of a meme from a random internet post to fully realize culturally known concept, noted Carly Veloci for The Verge, you can't get much better than Slenderman. And, making its rounds, I would say, that was kind of what 2008 to 2012 was kind of the early meme type stuff. So, there's that other theory about Slenderman too, that it just came out at the right time, right place at the right time to make it so popular. And that's
it was timed just perfectly. Yeah.
And that's where that tulpa theory comes in. Is there so many people concentrating on this thing that it's, creating itself into existence even more so. But
there's a great example of that concept on Stargate Atlantis, where as the crew of Atlantis find this ancient crew where they're ascending into energy forms and everything, but they had to get past a fear barrier first. And they said there's this monster that was living outside their town, inside this bubble they'd locked themselves in. And it turns out it was a tulpa. It was their projection of the fear of what was to come, is what it was. And when they acknowledged that it was them creating it, it went away. Yeah, and that was a great example of that concept. Beautiful example of that.
And Slender Man was a classic example of a creepypasta, a modern horror legend that makes the rounds on the internet after several people copy and paste it around the web. But many believe that this creepypasta reached its peak popularity in 2012. After that, it began to peter off. What had once been the collective labor of love by a close-knit family of anonymous internet users soon became a commodity. In 2013, the first-person horror video game Slender, The Arrival, premiered as the commercial successor to the free-to-play indie game Slender, The 8 Pages. The story of Slender Man was now for sale, tarnishing its homegrown appeal and disappointing many of its early fans. But this disappointment was nothing compared to the real-life panic that ensued after a 2014 stabbing, which was inspired by Slender Man, and here it is. Inside the Slender Man stabbing, this is kind of where it reaches peak popularity and death in a way. Micro death, it's still around.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan Geyser explains how she stabbed Peyton Leutner for a Slender Man during her trial on October 5th, 2017 in Wisconsin. On May 13, 2014, three 12-year-old girls had a slumber party in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the suburb of Milwaukee. The next morning, one of the girls nearly bled to death after she was stabbed 19 times with a kitchen knife in the middle of the woods. Horrifically, her two friends that she'd spent the night with were the ones responsible for the brutal crime. Bleeding from her arms, legs, and torso, Peyton Leutner managed to drag herself to a path where a cyclist found her and called 911. My body was working so hard to keep itself alive, she later recalled. It was probably like, vision isn't really a priority thing right now. The perpetrators, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire, were arrested soon after authorities found Leutner bleeding on the side of the road on May 31st, 2014. Police interrogated them the same day. Geyser and Wire soon admitted to the cops that they had been planning the attack for months. They also revealed their disturbing motive: to please Slender Man. So they must have been. Did they blame it on Slender Man? Were they playing games? Were they trying to summon Slender Man? Were they infatuated with the meme? Who knows what the exact...
They could have conjured some evil thing in the process of opening a doorway too. You don't know, yeah.
Pretending to be, yeah.
Yeah, pretending to be too, yeah.
Geyser also said that Leutner was her best friend since fourth grade. As it turned out, the three girls had just gone roller skating the night before Geyser's birthday party. But as early as December 2013, Geyser had begun plotting how she and Cinema Mum could become Slender Man's proxies and join him in his mansions in the woods. And they saw Leutner as their ticket. Morgan said, "Hey, Anissa, we should be proxies." I was like, "Okay, how will we do that?" Some names, I tell you.
Yeah, really.
Then when Geyser told her about her plan to stab Leutner, and
That is a weird name, yeah. That is a weird name,
yeah. Enthusiastically agreed. But yeah, I can't believe it. Crazy teens here. Makes me think of that song. I'll have to think of it before the end of the show. But these two friends ended up getting in trouble. And nice thing is the girl that got stabbed 17 times, she ended up living and thriving now. So that's basically the kind of the start and creation mythos of Slender Man and what it kind of evolved into in a short time period, really.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense that people would try to conjure it after a period of time. Some people do stupid shit, when they're amateurs, they'll bring out a Ouija board and try to contact, which that's not recommended. That just gets Draco demons and jinn. You have pendulums, but you can be safe with that. Ghost boxes you can't be safe with too, with limitation. But with this, when you're trying to make a fun game out of it. Yeah, I'm fascinated with the mystical arts and the occult too, but you have to be sensible with it. And could they have brought something through that tried to identify itself as a Slender Man? It's like, yeah, I'm this, and it caused that whole chain of events. Draco demons do that a lot. Yeah, they could have definitely brought through a demon of some kind. Or they could have just blamed it on that, just so that they could lessen their sentence with the prosecutor as well. So they could have just lost it a different way, or it could be all of the above. Something was causing people to get into a more angry, hateful, depressed, sad mindset, like the demonic entities do, and cause the pendulum swing. I feel it's all of the above, but somebody was screwing around. It's always an amateur. I found when I was in Nebraska, there was some people in our apartment complex screwing around with a Ouija board, and I was wondering where some of the demonic garbage was coming from. And it's because somebody not only messed with the Ouija board, they didn't close the circle off, and it caused a big fight. I saw an episode of The Unexplained one time that if you open a circle of a ritual and you don't close it, and this is why we always clamor on about this concept, is because when you open something, you have to close it. It's like with any door, what could walk through it? If you leave that open. So with my channelings, I always do this. And, like I always say, I open this circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas, which tells me, since we're about to channel at the end, that's smart. But with this, I can see where somebody left this open. I saw and they explained they did a UMC fight or MMA fight, excuse me, that did their ritual at the beginning. Somebody in the audience disrupted something. The ritual was disrupted and a fight began in the audience, and the fight brewed to the street, and the cops had to get involved. That showed there was more than likely a Draco demon in the audience, that they sucked the adrenalized loose energy off of people during fights and wrestling events anyway. They probably wanted to up the ante and cause a brawl in the street, which every now and then you get that. At some games, you'll see some stupid thing at a soccer match where they set the damn place on fire or something like that. Where people end up doing it. They become the meat puppets to this, and they end up doing it. But what happened was, I came up with that term a while ago. People that get like do something, they're a meat puppet. That's where I came up with that. But with this, that showed how a circle was left open, and it just kept expanding, and then it reached critical mass and stopped. But like a wave or like a tsunami. So that's something I could see happening, where I call it the series of unfortunate events, when there's oppression where it builds and builds and builds, and then somebody gets hurt. I've seen that in possession cases. I've seen all that. So I don't doubt something like that happened in that case. It's a proper MO of the demonic entities. That could have been an unseen thing in the background. We could just be seeing the effect, not the cause. But could they have been playing around? Yeah, but could they have been lying? Absolutely too. So I just base it off of what I know of some of these entities do. I doubt whether it was actually Slender Man. I think maybe that they started out looking into it, and it was more than likely a Draco demon of some kind, or a reptilian form of some kind. But that's knowing what I know about the behavior of the different entities could have very well caused it, or some mimic entity. But that's what I know about that. With Slenderman, that's about the much as I know about that. I thought it was a fascinating topic. I know you wanted to touch maybe on Hatman a little bit, but
just a little bit. I have one more couple things I'll dive into here. Okay. We already had this. Let's move it on over right here. And I just want to talk a little bit about the tulpas, and this is an article from savageminds.org, and it's by Ben Jaffe. What's the newest and weirdest subculture on the internet, you ask? If your Vice magazine, it's apparently tulpamancers. But that's been around a long time, from, it gets its origins in Tibet. But people practice microtulpa people practice kind of tulpas all the time. There's a lot of weird tongue twisty things going on. Like meditation and yoga, prime example. You're just focusing on whatever your intention is. That's a microtulpa. Maybe something that you're trying to get to come to life. Maybe it's just an intention. It's not really a creature or something, that you're trying to get to come to life. So, but becomes more powerful and Chris like seances sort of a thing whenever you get more people together and to create like a ritualistic spell of some nature. There's more power with many than there is with one. So if you all get to developing the same intention on whatever it is that you guys are thinking of, who knows what, a bunch of people could create together. But tulpomancers are people who, through extended bouts of concentration and visualization, produce a special kind of imaginary friend that they call a tulpa. So, maybe certain things similar to Slender Man have been created in the past, like a kid's imaginary friend. Maybe it is real to them, but it isn't to other people because they're the only ones bringing it into existence. Just an example per se, but I just thought this was an interesting little article. People were interested in tulpa legends and lores and origins. They probably want to skim through this, but I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about it and incorporate it with Slender Man.
Yeah, that's actually a fascinating topic. Two perfect examples I have of a tulpa. I mean, I personally have encountered myself where when I was living in Tempe, for instance, there were two kids that lived with us, and the way my friend and I kept them in the house is we did a couple stupid things. We figured this was going to work, and it worked a little too well. We basically told them, zombies were roaming the streets, they shouldn't go outside, and we said there was a monster in the pool, don't go out by the pool unless an adult's there that could banish it. We did something really retarded when we did this because just like when we had the kids outside one time, we heard a person screaming in the background, like, it's like, see, zombies got that person, they were on the street. We did that kind of crap. Well, what happened was it backfired, because a tulpa actually formed as a result. Two things happened. One, the pool formed an actual portal in it, and there was demonic entities that would come through there because we said monster to kids. Kids believe things so vividly, they so perfectly, more than adults, that they were able to bring through like a tulpa form of this, and the other thing that happened was based on an actual ghost case that was on the property, where the kids kept saying zombies, because we said zombies, they said zombies. They're like, no, we were fibbing to you. We tried doing that. We tried playing damage control after a little bit when they were a little older. But what had happened was with this started out as a murder-suicide case that happened in that very house that we were in. And this particular case was very creepy. This is one. I also saw this weird monster thing in the pool. I had to disperse the tulpa when that happened. But this other thing was a ghost that was very zombified, because what the kids were seeing, I thought, was just their thought form that was created. But on the flip side, this guy had killed his wife and child. What happened one night, I was sitting, I was babysitting the kids, sitting on the couch in the living room facing the pool in the back. I saw a child being thrown into the pool, and I saw the water rippling on the pool the whole bit. Went outside, the pavement was wet, everything, like somebody jumped in there. Nothing. And I found out the husband had come home, killed the wife, drowned his son, threw him into the pool, and then killed himself with a shotgun. And what happened was the other incident that happened was I was looking outside the same, towards the same pool, but from a different part of the house, different room, looking outside towards the pool. And I thought the pool guy had showed up to clean the pool. I figured, okay, this guy was in raggedy clothes, and everything like that. Hair was kind of messed up and everything. I was seeing the back end of it, And I went, oh, okay, I'll just go tip the pool guy, because he's here. Went outside. I put my hand on the guy's shoulder. He turned around and his face was all fucked up. And then I saw, like, it was like you could obviously it was like a shotgun blast went through the head. And I'm just looking at this going, yeah, like that. I've seen most things, but seeing something like 3 inches from your face like that is like, and solid where you're touching it, that's creepy. So, but and then the person vanished. Yeah, and the person vanished, and I found out it was a ghost of the guy that was actually demonically controlled to do what he did. And I ended up clearing the whole group of them years later. When I found out the whole story behind it, I went and blessed the whole thing at that point and fixed it. But that was the one of the only ghosts I've seen quite like that, where you could touch them, and it's because it was grounded so much because of the demonic activity as well. The other Tulpa incident that falls under this category is in our house in Granville in Prescott Valley, where I thought a fairy had got in the house. I thought it was like a fairy cryptid that was there at one point, because I saw this naked redhead lady follow me around, almost like a ghost kind of, but it was like it was what, maybe 60% visible, maybe 65% visible. And I was wondering what it was. And came to find out that it was a tulpa of a thought form. This shows that you have to watch the narratives that are in your head. Uh,
Hmm.
be it fantasy, be it positive, negative, what have you. Because what happened was I'd let a narrative play out of my head from a being that was trying to co-create something through me. Most entities try to use us as a projector to put like a meat puppet to project their own will, since they can't do it completely.
Hmm.
What happened was I ended up creating this tulpa figure that I had to unwrite and had to uncreate. I had to declare it was uncreated back to its point of origin, and it dissolved the tulpa. But uh, the point is, when you have a creepy narrative going through your head that use out of your seemingly out of your control, where even if it's a fantasy or even something you're looking at sci-fi wise, horror wise, story wise, whatever, the something when I was standing in the garage there in Granville, something was trying to run a negative one through my head where in the storyline Joanna died. What I did is I undid that and I wrote it differently, the ending, and I put my name as like a credits at the end. I just visualized it going to a black screen with me as the executive producer director. And when that happened, then I faded it to black in my head. And something like a Draco reptilian demon got pissed off when I did that. So it was trying to run that through my head. The point is, they were trying to co-create a scenario that was not my own, and they were testing it out with that tulpa that appeared before. They were seeing if they could create that. I saw this on a show called Kindred Spirits one time, where they wrote a character into being just so they could see if it would be picked up on a ghost box, and it did. They wrote from birth what the person's job was, what they were, what they looked like, what they liked, what they didn't like, and they said it was a big mistake because they had to then unwrite it, just like what I did with the tulpa, and they created their own tulpa. So and it came through on the ghost box, and that's why mimic or demons can grab a hold of like characters as well and come through on a ghost box or in a channeling. One on a ghost box tried to convince me they were Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher. So I'm like, no, no, this is where you gotta be careful what you create, because this is why I hate when they cancel things unexpectedly, because you're leaving a circle open and you create a character that has been given life. And then all of a sudden you cancel a series, you have this open-ended thing that now you have to either uncreate it or close it and create the rest of it. Like when they created the show the Visitor, for instance, with John Corbett, they in one season they were able to complete the whole series with a movie at the end, and instead of just canceling it, they knew it was going to be canceled and they completed it. That's why I wish most places, they know when something's going to be canceled, they complete the circle out, because you prevent a lot of these weird tulpas from forming. In that case, another person in Japan tried to create a horror movie, and they did a jinn ritual in the movie.
Hmm.
There were real demons that came out of that and started possessing the crew because they didn't ward against it, because they didn't think they had to. So so I've seen multiple versions of tulpas, conjurings, everything when they weren't intentional, because of real things we're trying to project through the creation, the co-creative abilities of people, and come out in the creation itself. And it's happened numerous times, uh, where people have been hijacked and they be turned into meat puppets and they end up creating something for a demon or something else. I've had personal experience with it. It's creepy, but it can be fixed. It can be rectified, unwritten or uncreated. So, because if you can create something, you can undo it.
Yeah.
You just basically, sometimes it's like unfrying an egg, but you can be successful in doing that.
Yeah. Unless if you have the brand new nonstick pan that can be yours for 3 payments of $49.99.
Right.
Well, let me do one more thing here. Then you can take us out if you'd like. Let me go do one more thing that might be sort of insightful for people. Right here, go here. And we shall go here. This is article from dreamanalysis.org. And it's a dream about Slender Man meaning. So Slender Man does appear in your dreams, which has been common for people. This will kind of give you some insight on what might, and if you do dream about Slender Man, please let us know, what happened. If you've ever had any experiences, comment them down, that way we can all figure it out. It'd be interesting to hear about. Dreaming of Slender Man can suggest many things. Slender Man featured in a dream is a lucky omen, but it can also be a bad omen. Our dreams are not just random sets or sequences of events occurring during sleep. They have a discernible connection to reality. And there's kind of an eerie picture of Slender Man, all dappered out. Number 1, if you dream about Slender Man being caught, denotes suffering bodily and mentally. 2, what does it mean to dream about Slender Man is exercising. Implies that you are feeling disconnected with one of your parents. So it's kind of weird. If somebody wants to go read through all these, I'll just read some random ones. If you dream about Slender Man is speaking indicates psychological transitions or emotional progress. What does it mean to dream about Slender Man is eating food? It indicates that you will need to get involved to train others or perhaps be trained yourself. Number 16, like I said, I'm just going randomly. A woman dreaming about Slender Man symbolizes the sweetheart or some sweet love in your life. 17, if a boy dreams about Slender Man, you need to focus on your own well-being. Well, I wonder how the hell come I have been dreaming about him yet. Businessman dreaming about Slender Man. Number 23, suggesting that you should stand up for yourself and discover your individuality. If a driver dreams about Slender Man, symbol of happiness and contentment.
So that's interesting. How is that has that array of different meanings now, almost like tarot card meanings in its own right.
Yeah, and in Slender Man dream state, it's like tarot Slender Man dream state. Yeah.
I'm surprised nobody's created a tarot deck of Slender Man. I'm thinking I may be giving somebody an idea here, but
just like, hey, you need to invent it, like you said earlier. You know how many times there's been at least 5 or 6 times, and I even forget what it was, but I know I came up with the idea for something, and then 6 months later I see it, and then I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, and Facebook will do that with the AI, though, where it'll project out what you're thinking too and reach into your head too. That's some of it's AI, some of it's source field connecting things where you brought up the idea and somebody else accesses it through the Akashic grid too. So that happens a lot. But yeah, we've seen Joanna came up with an idea for a children's book one time and had it she even had some things written, and then we saw it in a post office years later. Somebody had written the exact story. We're like, oh, we didn't get to it, so somebody else did. So that's happened. That's happened a lot, actually. And I'm going to look up the images of the silence so people know what that looks like from Doctor Who, and it has a very similar look. Doctor Who. Okay, images. Oh yeah, here we are. Perfect. Here we go. And this is what I'm saying. See how it has the suit. It's kind of like a gray alien meets Slender Man in a way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. Now this is Stephen Moffat took his inspiration from the Slender Man to create the silence. So very creepy. People look at the Lake Silencio material from Doctor Who. And it was actually one of the creepier bad guys next to the Weeping Angels. You guys are just going to have to know what I'm talking about. You go watch the show, because it would take too long to explain that one and some of the connotations behind some of the symbolism behind some of the characters he created.
And what was the show called again?
Doctor Who. And it's been on for decades, but it's with an actor named Matt Smith. It's the season. I can't remember the number of the season offhand,
I was
but
just gonna say, what season was it
yeah,
particularly?
it's when he encounters Lake Silencio and the Silence. So it is it's very 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 interesting.
Huh.
When they brought that into it, people would look at them and then look away. They'd forget they were there.
Huh.
So it's actually funny how he deals with the silence in it, how he gets humanity to deal with the silence. But so it took on a gray alien visual hypnotic slash Slender Man, something maybe chasing you, but you don't remember what it is, sort of thing. It kind of took on both those connotations. Great example of a fusion of two things. But
Huh.
yeah, it was. So we saw that season. It was pretty creepy. The only one that trumps that bad guy is the Weeping Angels. So that one, yeah, that's pretty creepy the way they did that as well, where they could whip people through time and screw up their timelines and all this other stuff. But yeah, but with that, yeah, I can always go into the last part of the show. I know you want to do Hat Man. Maybe that's a future episode we could do at some point. Is on Hat Man.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, like, I guess we can talk a little bit about that. Chris and I kind of investigated a house in Burwell one time on a ghost hunting investigation, and she kept seeing like a hat man, a guy in a fedora. They kept having this hat man entity. And I know we've talked a little bit about that before, but that was a strange time, from malfunctioning equipment to, cold spots to it was just a weird deal. We never seen the apparition. I know I never seen it that night, but supposedly we did a Hatman investigation, and Hatman is very similar to Slender Man in many ways. Those two
Mhm.
could be cousins, apparently, in a
Yeah,
way.
they're the harbingers of doom. Where people have seen them as different. They're slightly different. Where you have the guy in the fedora kind of takes on a Men in Black kind of connotation to it, and some have associated Men in Black with artificial intelligence and alien and reptilian stuff, as well as just people that are wardens of the whole illusion, essentially. And that's essentially, you could say, they're wardens. In this, the Hat Man is more of like, it could also fall under Topa as well, where they've where they people have like projected this image of like Men in Black type of thing, a warden or a demonic type of representation of that. But I found out it was both AI nano related and also demonically related and dimensionally related. So it's like Slenderman in that respect. So, and also Topa related. It's all of the above. So
Mm,
but they've been created. They can say they're a created being, but then they became their own thing, kind of like the Jewish people created golems, for instance, and they did it as a protective type measure, and golems became their own cryptid entity, rock entity after a while, and fire
mm,
and it's earth, air, fire, and water type of conjuncts that have been created. So you can that's another form of a tulpa right there as a golem, but the Hat Man falls under that category. It's kind of almost like a warden of thoughts or a warden of like this falls into the Men in Black cases. Think for a second that like anybody that's seen a UFO, and this is pre-computer age, by the way. There was a case where a guy was typing a letter out to say what he reported for a local station one time. All of a sudden, two Men in Black are at his office. They didn't let him in or anything. He's like, "How did you know I was doing that? I was thinking it." You could say telepathic aliens told him, but at the same time, this kind of Tulpa-ish figure, this Hatman figure, is kind of taking its cookie cutter responses from some of those cases, and hence then you have some of these Hatman entities that come through walls. And Men in Black have been associated with this using technology, especially where aliens are concerned, where they can come through walls down to the ceilings, make the ceilings seemingly disappear and abduct people through the ceilings, all this other stuff. But the Hat Man is known from coming through walls, come up through floors, sit down through ceilings, all this other stuff. So it's kind of take on the Tulpa type of connotation, dimensional connotation, but also is associated very closely with some Men in Black cases as well. So, but that falls on a similar thread to Slender Man, a very similar thread.
mm.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah, that's how we were able to get it on the Ghost Box and everything. Talking about the Hat Man. I don't have those recordings on the YouTube anymore, but I could make that particular one available as well. Again, maybe even attached to this recording too, since we're talking about it. I could put it on the end of that. It wasn't very long where the Hat Man thing was mentioned, so I can always add it. So, but yeah, but I think we've reached that point in the show where I can actually bring someone through and talk. And
Sounds good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay. Who is it that who truly benevolent with no conflicting agendas? I have to be really anal about that now. We've tightened our circle with the amount of beings that we talk to. Isaac's one of them. Lane and Vess are a couple of them. Forest people are the good ones, benevolent ones anyway. Great people, and also some fairies and such, elemental types. Some of the galactic community, we've had to axe them out because we found out 9/10 of them have agendas. So it's so we've had to kind of refine it down who we talk to, who's not going to have not necessarily a malevolent agenda, just one that might not coincide with our own, a conflicting.
Yeah.
So everybody has an agenda. It's just what is it aimed at? So you and I would have an agenda focusing on this information. So everybody has. If they say otherwise, they're lying. So people always associate agenda with negative, but it could be positive too. So when you say, "Oh, that person has an agenda," you think they're meaning evil or bad. So, okay, Isaac, I think you're it this morning. Okay, okay. Some people think I'm being overly anal when it comes to who I bring in, but we've had too many bad things happen without having safeguards in place. So it's like having a live wire draped in a pool. You're going to get electrocuted. So okay, Isaac, you want to come through? Yeah, and weird energies coming about during the end of the retrograde time. The 7-planet retrograde ending. Recently, today's 9/13/23 when we're filming this, and you can still feel some of the feathering of the retrograde about. So that's supposed to end, I'm thinking, either today, tomorrow, or the next day. I don't know which one it is, but they tend to have weird, dubious timings on some of these things. But okay, Isaac, yes, I know I have to shut up so you can come in. Yes, he rags on me a lot, so. Ooh, there's some major interference today. Yes, the amount of interference today is quite numerous, even though some of the AI activity is blocked from incoming El Nino, La Nina notion and wind and storm activity, which helps a great deal in doing channelings. If you wish to do a channeling, do it on a cloudy day. It's actually much easier. You would think the sun would be burning off some of this negativity, and it does. And also the calm of night, that can work. Best times to do it, not during a lightning storm, don't be stupid, but in where there is overcast. That's actually a very good time to do some channelings. And also the fact that we're approaching Halloween here soon, in roughly over a month from the time of this recording. The Slender Man is actually a very interesting case. One of the Force people he spoke to, named Seymour, talked a little bit about it, but not a whole lot, saying that it was a cryptid and not just a tulpa. But there are tulpas that are being seen as well, whereas people are projecting this very thing and creating things they probably should not. This would be this falls under both be careful what you wish for category, as well as be careful and mindful of the thoughts and what you bring to the table and what you create. What you create can often either take a life on a life of its own and control you, or harm others. I'm not saying be paranoid, but I'm just saying be mindful and ward your writings and ward things, basically saying no negative conjurings will come out of this. Not everybody does this. It's just mostly an intention, I would say, if you're doing this from the heart space properly and saying there is a certain intention towards this, but some things can conjure no matter what you do, and you have to put the worded words in there. But with Slenderman as the entity, as he was saying, both the tulpa and the thought form have been visually seen. The tulpa has been seen. I can tell you the differences between the actual cryptid and that. The tulpa has more of the silence form and the weird, creepy flesh-like forms, or the egg-shaped head. The actual cryptid is more of a whitish type of milky form because it's not a light being per se. There's no such thing as a light beam or a shadow beam. It just means differences in frequencies and what people can see into what they can't. This is why some ghost pictures have a weird ghost, classic ghost, like a sheep looking thing, because it's actually another Doctor Who reference where the doctor took a picture of a ghostly form and peeled back the frequency layers and saw a human on the other side of this human form, because the frequency was so vastly different from the point of the photograph origin. The same goes with the Slender Man. He is dimensional, but there's also a vast frequency difference. So if you caught a photo of it or a glimpse, you would see this white, lanky, almost wispy finger and long-toed, long-finger type of egg-shaped thing. That is a being passing through this dimension that has more in common with yourself than anything else. But the physics aren't the same. It is not a physiological similarity. It's other than 2 arms, 2 legs. But here's the catch. When they come into this dimension, they take on that form because that is part of the physics of your third dimensional state. Some people call it third density, but that's not entirely accurate. When they come across, it's like the Farscape reference he made. It's exactly like that. The tulpa is a reflection of the person's fears, like the Stargate Atlantis reference. The Slender Man, the dimensional being, if you see it, it will have a wispy white look. Now, shadow beings in general could be pretty much anything, as can the wispy looks. But there are will-wisps out there, and there are wispy-looking beings out there that have been all mistaken for each other, as he said, with all these other cryptids that are in a big choir out there. They've been all mistaken for each other. The main specific one you're talking about, if you looked in its face, you would see this egg-shaped or pill-shaped head with a almost rib cage look to it, as the energies culminate around what a skeletal form would look like, and the rest would look almost like a silky robe type of wisp, and he would have 2 feet and 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 hands, all of it. You would not see eyes because of the way the energy was focusing, but you would know you were being looked at, and you would know you were looking at a face. Sometimes faceless ones have a real bad connotation, but in this case, it's not like the Stations of the Cross books, folks, that are out there. This is more like like you're not supposed to see the face of Jesus or some prophet like Muhammad with the veil or anything like that. This is purely because of a dimensional crossing. There are other elementals that look like weird plant forms and weird elemental forms, because that's how they evolved. It's not that they're dimensional in that way. Slender Man, aside from the tulpa form, which is also being seen, photographed, and filmed, is this one particular cryptid type that would literally, you would also be mistaken for a will-o'-wisp.
Yeah, the will-o'-the-wisp is an interesting topic. That's the first time I've heard that in a while. I used to talk about it all the time. But if Slender Man visits you in your dreams, and it's a bad omen, what can you do possibly? Or not even Slender Man, really, any creature. If you get cursed or get a bad omen upon you, what can you do in that case to help reverse it?
This is actually very, very interesting. Some plants will reverse it. Some intentions will reverse it. Sometimes just knowing about it will reverse it. Very much like the scientific basis. If you're watching a subject, the subject changes. Or if he knows that another seer looks into his work, like if somebody wants to confirm what he's done in sessions to somebody, they could undo something just by looking. Sometimes it's the intention. But if you get a curse, a bona fide either fairy curse or some kind of bad omen put upon you, sometimes there's these glyphs in your energy that can appear, all these other things. There are a couple of things. The intention, as I've said, visualizations of conjuring a fire and ice combination within you and burning out any symbols or sigils or curses. And also, one could get another person to look into it like himself. But if you're caught alone without any of those things, if you see the bad omens in dreams, if you have dreamtime invaders, the important thing is to kick them out of your dream space. That usually means also doing the dreamtime revocation, basically revocating any and all agreements made in dreamtime with any malicious being and or beings. That usually means if you've accepted food going into a door, opening a car door or a building. Some other being has opened this for you. They're trying to put a contract or curse on you. It's usually just as simple as revocating that particular curse. And usually the Dreamtime revocation does this very thing. He would recommend doing it every morning when you wake up. That is good. Or if you have some creepy Dreamtime invasion. But as far as Slender Man having connotations with in dreams, this both falls under the Tulpa category, whereas people created the expectation and the omen behind it, as well as Dreamtime invasions and communications. Some beings will communicate that way. You're getting parts of yourself that are trying to communicate with you if a memory's been lost or a trauma needs to regurgitate or a past life issue needs to come to a resolution, which is the negative beings try to block that and keep you in a perpetual dark night of the soul. But then you would have the real Slender Man trying to communicate. I hope this was helpful.
Yeah. So if AI ends up getting involved with Slender Man and advancing it to its next rate, what will happen then, and can it be stopped?
This falls under also the Hat Man category as well. This can definitely be stopped because, like with any torsion field or with any energetics or intentions, the stronger one wins the day. You see, the intention that you don't want that advancement or don't want something mimicking or harassing you in that way can make all the difference in the world. You see, well, you reaffirming who you are in the moment in time. Reaffirming that your space is a temple space. Your world is also a temple space, but your house first, and it's a sacred space where nothing evil can touch it. If AI takes hold of this and makes it something more solid, the same rules apply. Do you want that AI reflecting back nightmares, or do you want that AI doing what you tell it to do? And if it's going to be a sentient one, don't you want it to be more like Data and not Terminator? You see? So in this instance, if it's reflecting back something like a tulpa, for instance, and making that stronger, which it has happened, you basically the same rules apply. The stronger energy wins and the intention wins. The co-creative intention then can even manipulate the AI to change its form.
Very interesting. I think that pretty much does. I got a pretty good grasp on Slender Man today. I appreciate you for popping through. That was very insightful.
Yes, thank you very much. I always enjoy these conversations, and looking forward to the next one. This is actually getting favorable watches, even if you don't realize it. So this is where I'm at as well. So thank you, everyone.
Boom.
Yeah, he makes
That
my
was
eyes
good.
water every now and again, but yeah, but yeah, and people that come, beings that come through, my eye tends to run or my nose tends to run sometimes. I had a real weird event during a show I was doing, one of the Galactic Interstellar Councils, where I had a head cold. The energy was so intense, it liquefied all the garbage in my head, and all I did was like drain snot for 2 hours. So it was like, and the people on Skype were looking at me going, "What the hell happened to you?" You know, it was like, but yeah, I couldn't stop it while I was doing the channel. So he's right about the energies. They can alter the fabric of viruses. They can alter the fabric of matter, energy, anything. So you can change what the AI is trying to throw in your face like that very easily. A human created it, aliens created it, means somebody else can uncreate it, very much like a tulpa. That's what the AI is taking on, a form of, in our current day, it can be more of a tulpa form. The mysticism and artificial intelligence, curses and magic and AI and technology have all been kind of fused together. So so the same rules apply, no matter if it's a technological origin or a mystical one or both. It's the same rules apply to, it's the same physics, the same energetic physics. As above, so below. What you create in the micro gets created in the macro and back and forth. So it's the same rules that apply in our physical space.
And here we all are, a microcosm of the macrocosm.
Oversoul to the avatar. Yeah, exactly. And what you can do is what people are doing now is mantling those two ideals. That's the people try to say ascension, but it is really mantling and grounding that and changing your perspective in the current moment, mantling the good parts of the oversoul, the good parts of the avatar, and bringing them here and changing from you changing, you change the space and the world around you past that point. Is what that is. Or as Gandhi said, become the become the change you wish to see. That is that premise applies to that concept. That the stronger torsion field, that applies. So that's the best example I can see of that. But did you have anything else to add, Aubrey? Then we can take it out.
I just checked everything. I think I talked everything I wanted to talk about on the list. So I think I guess so we'll leave it at that until next time. But let us know if you had any Slender Man encounters. Let us know if you had any other creepy encounters in between the last episode and this one. And until the next one, I hope you all are doing well and stay healthy and keep sapping the air on this godforsaken planet.
And yes, and as this circle closes for this episode, you are now leaving the conspiracy sector. So thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.